Hi everybody, Chris here from Truly Holistic. In this video, we're going to talk about the elements tensor ring set, which is this ring set here. So you get 5 tensor rings, which facilitate 5 different energetics. Okay, so what we call it the elements tensor ring set is you have the elements: earth, air, water, fire, and ether. Okay, and which is a representation of yourself as an infinite consciousness. A wee while back now at Truly Holistic, my guides, my soul consciousness, made me familiar with what I am as an infinite consciousness, right? My energy signature, which often is referenced as a soul, which is spliced over a multitude of realities, universes. And I was shown in a way to represent it as depicted as a tree, which we then call the ascension map, which is this here. Okay. Now you get this with those tensor rings, with the set, you get this map, this ascension map, which has Earth, and this is the reality that you're forging here. The whole purpose in us here is to create reality, right? So we create a reality. We are discerned in where we want to place our attention, how we want to use our intention. And those two avenues of attention and intention is how we expend our energy into creating reality. Okay, quantum physics often talks about the role of the observer, right? That for reality to be here, it requires an observer, someone to observe reality. And of course, when we're observing reality, we're using our place of attention. And there's an old saying, where attention goes, energy flows, which implies that what we're choosing to place our attention or focus on, right, our vision, will then become envisioned. Okay, so it's very important to know what you are, right, which is a big emphasis on this elements tensor ring set, but also to know how you forge yourself. How do you apply your energy, which then will become the reality you experience? Okay, so this is the map here. This is the reality that we are in, that we're forging here, which we simply call the earth element, right? Which is, in regards to the set, the tensor ring set, is that ring there, which is made with the activation qubit. Now, all the qubit measurements that Truly Holistic provides, what I provide, have all been intuitively guided or brought forth to me, right? And this has been really a byproduct of myself as a quantum ascendance healer, but more importantly as a reality coach, because a few years back when I was working on clients, I was noticing regular themes coming forth which required a clearing, right? To remove an entity or remove whatever that may be. And so all of a sudden, I took it upon myself to know why. Why are they here? Why are they attached to that person? Why do they keep coming back? And of course, that led me on a path of understanding reality, right? Which is really filled in a lot of holes that were present at that particular time, right? Which is really the meaning, the understanding, the cause to the effect. And through that experience of understanding reality, understanding what I am, what each one of us are, and also our role and how we forge ourselves here, then all of a sudden I found out about this map and how the elements, which are a makeup of who we are, how they all come together, and also to facilitate products which we use tensor technology to become that physical anchor to bring through those energetics. Okay, so what I was learning and understanding reality was also being connected into the qubits, which are essentially a measurement presented. So when you create a tensor ring, you're twisting the wire, then you cut it to a particular measurement, and then you braze it together so it's a closed loop, as we've got here. Now, obviously, Slim Sperling was the individual that brought forth the discovery or the understanding of a tensor ring to the world. But I'm a big believer in taking technologies and running with them, right? Evolving them. And now we've got a tensor ring set that directly connects to an understanding of reality, but also connects into an understanding of what you authentically and infinitely are. Okay, so we've got a map that is associated with the tensor ring or with a set of tensor rings. No one has ever done this before. Right, so this is the activation qubit, and this is what Earth element really means is a sense of ground. Okay, so people will go, I've lost my ground, right? Or I need to be grounded, right? Which we know there's a lot of science now that supports the aspect of going barefoot on the earth, which we'll call earthing or grounding, and how it changes our physiology, right? It really puts our body in an anti-inflammatory state. We know inflammation is bound and connected to most illnesses. And we know that inflammation is in the body due to a lack of flow in the body, because flow is presented to the body when we present our own natural state. And our own natural state is to drop our awareness out of the head, out of mind, thought, mentality, drop it in the heart, which is heart, feel, knowing, get the heart open. And all of a sudden, when we get our heart open, we can present more of ourself, which starts with earth, grounding, right? And grounding, our original ground is to get our heart open, right? So this ring is fantastic for anybody that's having heart problems, whether it's high blood pressure problems, whether they're having increased irregular heart rate or an arrhythmia, congestive heart failure, all these cardiovascular problems. Now that's because they're not utilizing the heart, its original role of the heart, in getting yourself that heart open, getting yourself grounded, getting yourself connected to what you are. So this particular ring is wonderful for those things, but it's, as I say, it's connected to presenting an anti-inflammatory state to the body, and inflammation is connected to all the health problems that there is. So that's the first point of connection. Now on here, that's where we are. Now the next point of connection is air, as you can see there, right? And what air stands for is self-awareness, right? Because when we're practicing meditation, the two key principles of meditation is essentially close your eyes and focus on your breath, right? And for me, that step approach is to close your eyes, is to remove your attention, right? As I mentioned before, this is how you apply your energy away from the distraction, from the things outside of you. And when you close your eyes, your energy can't go anywhere other than remain with you. And then when you focus on your breath, what's happening? You're returning your awareness back to you, right? Instead of the circus out here, okay? And when your energy is dictated by what's going on out here, everything else controls you, because it controls where your energy is going. But if you have self-awareness, you have that sovereignty to know and become self-aware. Okay, my choices mean that that's where I am going to expend my energy. That's how I'm going to invest my energy in the reality that I'm going to then experience. So self-awareness is very important. And of course, it focuses on the breath, which is called an airway. And of course, when we connect to this passage of ourself, which is to connect into other realities where our consciousness is bound or connected to, which you could perceive as your higher self, or just variants or versions of you experiencing reality and other realities where they are trying to convert their experience into wisdom. That's why we're here as well. Then it can present to you a guide, an insight, and a wisdom in how you should approach yourself here. So, airway, it's presenting the right way for you, the way through a focus on your breath, right? Self-awareness. And that is the smallest ring, which is the gateway qubit. Okay. Right? So you can see that this ring here, the earth element ring, presents a full spectrum of frequencies, not a static frequency. These tools are not about a static frequency. the mind compartmentalizes and breaks things into parts where we become specific about a certain frequency. That's a good one, it's a bad one, that's duality. We want to get out of that. What we want is we want to present every frequency that is available to us and allow our soul, which is our innate intelligence, by getting our heart open, presenting our natural state, to do the decision making for us and present the frequency or bunch of frequencies we need moment to moment, because our experience and what's presented to us and what we're creating from moment to moment is going to change. So from one moment to moment, we may need a different frequency or a bunch of frequencies. So we want that to be adaptable and pliable. We don't want to be stuck to a specific frequency or static frequency. So you can see that these are smart devices because they are bound and connected to your heart, which is the facilitation of your soul, which is your innate intelligence. That's what you infinitely and authentically are. Okay? So the earth is the full potential of a spectrum of frequency. All the frequencies that are the building blocks to every element, every mineral, every vitamin you know. Okay? Now, the air one, which then brings in all these other realities, are bringing in potentials, possibilities of every frequency we know in this reality, right? So all of a sudden, I always say that when we connect through our heart and connect into our consciousness, we're now providing infinite possibilities to ourselves, okay? Which, if we do that, then we shouldn't be saying that I've tried everything. Because when you've got infinite possibilities available to yourself, there's just infinite potential, to remedy any problem, to resolve any issue. This is what this is all about, okay? So this is the air. Now, next one, the water, which is at the roots of the tree, right? Now, the depiction of the tree is very important too, because, this is the roots. This is the origin of our consciousness, is the water, right? Which is the roots, right? And then we've got the trunk here, right? Because our consciousness wants to evolve. That's what all consciousness want to do. And how it evolves is to convert experience into wisdom, right? It has infinite frequencies, but without the experience to use those frequencies, what's its purpose? It has to have purpose and meaning to it. That's why we have experience, right? And therefore, it splices itself into a multitude of realities so it can amplify that ability to convert experience into wisdom. Now, if we don't fulfill that prophecy or that purpose of being here, where we convert our experience into wisdom, then we come back for another lifetime and have another go. Now, this is also connected to your natural state because it's connected to your heart, because there's an expression, right, that says to get to the heart of the matter. And what that means is to get to the origin or the purpose of the experience, because that's what's required to convert that experience into wisdom. So that requires us being in our heart to perceive it and also process it, to decipher what we're experiencing. If we're up here in the mind and thought mentality, then we're not going to do that. We're just going to accumulate experience, which then creates congestion of body that leads to illness, and we're not going to fulfill our soul's purpose in being here, which means we get recycled back to have another go. Okay? Right. So back to water. Now that is this ring here. Okay? And this is the ascension qubit. Okay? Which is the source or origin of your consciousness. Okay? Now, isn't it interesting, right? We're talking about the elements. We're talking about, so far, earth, air, water, which we then experience as part of our reality as well, right? We're on earth, okay? And we have a symbiotic connection with the earth. And of course, we've got air, right? In regards to that can also connect into the gaseous air, which make up our atmosphere, right? And what we breathe and what we breathe out, which is a regulating rhythm in itself. And we've also got water, right? And as I said about earth, right? Earth means ground, air means self-awareness. Now water, when we look at water in the physical world, water is the physical embodiment of flow. And we know how important flow is because When we present our natural state and get our heart open, which is our primary source of flow, as it's not a pump, it's a vortex facilitator, then it's our primary source of flow to the body. So everything about our body, whether it's our blood, whether it's our lymph, whether it's neurons communicating to other neurons, nervous system, whether that's food going down one end of the tube to pass out the other, which is the digestive system, which is the regulation of breathing with the respiratory system. What's common there is it all works well when everything's flowing. Okay. When we've lost our ability to go with the flow or be in the flow or ride the wave, which are all expressions that are very connected to the heart and the heart leading our experience, if we can't do that, then all of a sudden we get sick, we get ill. Okay? Because all of a sudden now we're providing a state of congestion to our body, right? So the interesting about when we look at water in nature, water doesn't just move linear, it vortexes. For example, this weekend that's just been, I took my children to an area to look at some glowworms and stuff like that. But on our travels, they commented that, why is there so many bends in this road that we're driving? And why there were so many bends in the road is because the road was hugging up against a river. And in nature, that's the flow of water. Is like that, like a snake. That's a vortex. There's nothing straight, linear like that. And if you look at the tensor rings, you can see that too, right? It's twisted wire. It's a vortex. And vortex is the form of water. Okay? It's the geometry of form of flow. That's what a vortex is. Even when we get into some of the other elements in a minute, what we're going to talk about, like fire, when the flames of a fire, they don't go up like that. They vortex up. Everything vortexes, right? This is connected to the Fibonacci sequence, golden ratio, DNA. It's all vortex. It's all spiral geometry. Okay, so that water ring embodies that flowing aspect, right? That you can impart and utilize on all sorts of things that you're dealing with, with your body, but also this is the energetic we also use for your water that you're going to drink, right? And when you do that, it connects the water back to its original state because water holds memory. So even if water is processed, right, for a processing plant and recycled back, it might have removed the physical contaminants, but the memory of those contaminants still exists in there, which have moved it and shifted it further and further away from its original state, because it's a consciousness too. Everything we perceive in the physical world is a consciousness. So when we use this ring on it, it brings it back to its original state. It relinquishes all this memory, because we're not here to hold anything either. Nothing is. Okay, when we are fully self-aware and present in the moment, we're not in a place to hold on to things. We're in a place to be fully self-aware of the experience and convert that experience into wisdom. That's what it's all about. It's a water element. Next one, which is the soil to the tree. And this is where we get into celestial existence. Okay, and this is the reason why there's the tree to begin with, what we call consciousness. It was once upon a time, the tree wasn't there. Consciousness wasn't there. It was just celestial existence. And outside of the tree is what we call the void. Now, the void is represented through the mind. This is represented through the heart. And why celestial existence got involved was nothing was keeping it in check and in balanced state, the void. So this is what created us. And the role we have to play here. And the role we have to play here is to expand the light. Expand our consciousness, expand the tree. Because as I mentioned, right, there's the roots, there's the trunk. Now see each reality, which is us, to be here, be a representation of what we authentically are. This is the foliage, right? The leaves, the flowers of the tree, which is the expression, the representation of the tree, right? And that's what we're here to do, right? We're here to create reality through the guidance of what we authentically are, through the heart, feeling into our circumstance and situation, so we can grow that tree, right? So which then mitigates and brings everything into balance so the void doesn't overwhelm. But the problem, sad reality, is that humanity believes they are the mind, because humanity is generally forged by the mind. And of course, the mind is a representation of the void, but we came here not to be a representation of the void. We came here to be a representation of the quantum, which is this tree, which is what you authentically are. Because the mind's not you. The heart and what it facilitates is you. Okay, and this is why I don't like the idea of these static frequencies when it comes to the old ways of tensorings, because it's very mind-orientated. Okay. Anyway, next one. Fire element, which is this one. It's a bit bigger, this one. So this is the fire element. This is the fire infinity energetic or qubit. And fire means to renew, right? And a perfect example I always like to bring up about that, it's a fever, right? So when we get a fever, and of course medicine will say, oh, you got a fever, we've got to do something about that. That's because you've got intruders, a microbe, a pathogenic microbe. It's trying to purge it out of the system. It's a half truth. It doesn't, you can have a fever and it's not necessarily about a pathogenic microbe. It's about an intruder though, and about an intruder on the energetic level. Okay, when we are being guided mind thought mentality, we are not in the flow. We're not being in the flow. We're not riding the wave, which means we're not presenting a state of flow to our body, which means our body starts to congest. And over days, over weeks, over months, over years of creating congestion, which means we build up and accumulate stuff in the body, right? Which leads to illness, sickness. Your soul consciousness coming through the body intervenes and tries to initiate a fever, which is to bring flow, a state of flow back to the body. Okay? And it floods the body with this energy, this flow, which you know is a fever. And that is the core elements of what feeds yourself as a consciousness, the fire element. Okay? So when I started using this energetic, and there's a product that I made, the I Am Everything Pyramid, which has got a number of energetics in it, but it's got the fire energetic. Every person that first got that product all experienced like they were going, wow, I feel like my body's on flames. I feel hot. Because what that product was facilitating, it was much needed flow into their physiology. Because, for so long, their body was in a state of congestion. And this energetic's trying to change the tide and bring more flow into the body. I'll let you know an example was a few years ago when I first made the I Am Everything Pyramid, which was one of the first tools we made that we incorporated the fire element into it. I can remember putting my name, my photo, because it's a distance tool, under the pyramid. And of course, I would experiment on myself first before putting it out there to the world. And all of a sudden, I think I'd been on there for about a week or two, and all of a sudden I started to get fever symptoms. And I was a bit confused about it because I didn't feel sick, so to speak. I had a fever, but I didn't have any other symptoms of what would be a typical fever, right? What modern medicine would tell you why you got a fever and all the symptoms that you get with it, right? And I was all flushed and hot. And also my son was having the same symptoms at the time. This is, again, quite a few years ago. And what I realized when I went into my treatment room, I realized it's the fire element of that product. And funnily enough, yes, as I told you, my name, my photo was under that pyramid. But in the little bit below that, right, was a photo of my son in there, and I didn't realize it. So he was in that proximity of the pyramid, and that's why he was feeling the fever as well. So when we took our photos, our names out of it, within hours that dissipated. So that was a huge realization about the power of this particular element, a very expansive element, the fire element. And then the last one is the ether, the biggest ring that is part of this elements tensor ring set, which goes even further, even more expansive. Now, ether means new beginnings, right? So you can see that how they all connect with each other, right? And this is why we put them as a set, that you have to take a step-by-step approach. You can't just go from here and go straight to ether. You need to learn how to ground yourself, because the whole spiritual, they call it a spiritual phenomena, but really it's the purpose of why you're here, which is called ascension. And ascension is to facilitate every aspect of yourself as an infinite consciousness to be represented here. And of course, the word ascend is to go up, right? So it's connected to the word to levitate. Now, that there is within you, and for it to be represented here is to come through the heart. So picture all of this as like a spring water, right? An aquifer deep within the earth, right? A body of water that needs to levitate up to the surface, right? To become a spring. Well, how your surface is the heart, okay? So ascension is not about what's above your head. It's about something that exists within you, but knowing how to represent and facilitate what you are, which is not through the mind, but through the heart, right? And to ascend all of that so it's all present and represented here, okay? Right? So to establish that, to begin with, you need to understand and learn how to ground yourself. This next step is to then present self-awareness, right? To understand that the priority is to be aware of how you apply yourself, not to get distracted about what's happening outside of you, because that will take care of itself. But to be aware of how you apply yourself, because when we get caught up in all of that, we lose sight, we lose our self-awareness, and we lose sight of where we apply our energy. And I get clients all the time saying, can you remove all these blocks? With the idea that they believe those blocks have nothing to do with them, they're to do with other things outside of them. But what do we find every time? It's directly connected to that person. They've lost sight of where they've applied their energy, and those blocks that now experience as something outside of them are only there because their own energy is bound to it. They lost sight of where their energy went to. So this is essential. Ground, to be self-aware of how you apply yourself. Water, to be in the flow, to go with the flow, ride the wave. Right? What's the biggest obstructor of that? Is to think and overthink, because that obstructs or blocks your ability to have momentum, to go with the flow, to be in the flow, to ride the wave, which then presents that gets reflected as your physiology, which then promotes wellness and vitality instead of being sick. And then fire, to renew, right? All of a sudden, for years and years, we've been applying a state that wasn't even my natural state, right? Being mind, thought, mentality, which is all about congestion, about about accumulation. Now all of a sudden we've got a new state that now we're going to renew ourselves, right? Our terrain, our state's going to be renewed, right? So the fire, right, burns the attachments, the dependencies, all the things that are becoming obstacles in your ability to flow. And then the final touch is new beginnings, right? Because your ability to perceive, process what you experience here is completely transformed. Okay? It's new beginnings because essentially you're experiencing something different. You're simply experiencing what is instead of what isn't. Because what is being connected, being the observer, connecting directly to what is present. When we're in mind, thought, mentality, we lose our self-awareness, we lose our ability to be connected to what is. So we start to fabricate and create stories which become what isn't, right? We start to create and then experience an illusion, okay? So this is how this tensoring set works all together. It's a fantastic product. So you get this with the 5 rings. You also get a dowsing chart, which enables the ability to dowse what, let's say you've got an issue. Let's say you've got knee pain. and you want to know, hey, what ring do I need to apply to help my knee pain? You douse on the chart to find out which ring you need. Do I need the earth element? Do I need the water element? Do I need the fire element? And so on. And as I say, the earth element is one spectrum of frequencies. The air element is a number of spectrums because they're all different potentials of the same frequencies. Okay? The water element of all those frequencies, as a whole, as a collective. This is your true oneness, by the way. Okay? This is what you infinitely and authentically are. You're here to be a human for a little bit. That's not what you infinitely and authentically are. It's like me, I'm going to wear a jacket for an hour or two. That's not who I am. It's just I'm going to use that jacket for a little while, right? And then when we get into fire and ether, we're getting into celestial existence, the most expansive energetics we know. So you get those, and we also give you another chart that it shows you the fact that, as I mentioned, ascension is about bringing forth every aspect of yourself here. And as you do, right, and get the heart open, your auric field, your aura, which is essentially your atmosphere for your planetary body, and your planetary body is this body, right? That's your atmosphere, your auric field. And as you facilitate more of yourself, what happens to your field? It expands out infinitely, accordingly. And as your field expands out more, your ability to connect into more, to understand more, provide purpose to your experience. This is not to absorb more. This is to understand more and to shift things into balance. As I said, that's why we're here, is to bring things into balance. What organ of the body has an innate ability to shift things back into balance? The heart. In fact, this tool here, the chestahedron, the man that discovered this and presented this to the earth, to humanity, a guy called Frank Chester, hence the name chestahedron, realized that this geometry they brought forth was the geometry of the human heart, especially the left ventricle, and the amount of research and connections he's made with the heart and with the earth and our experience here with that geometry, incredible, transformational, because it is all to do with the heart. Okay, so we get that expanded, but when we get stuck up in here and our awareness comes away from here and that closes up and we get back into mind, thought, mentality, what we're not, our auric field collapses in. And an example of like panic attack. A panic attack is when your field is collapsing quickly, like four walls of the room caving in on you. No wonder they hyperventilate and they panic. Because you've got to remember, right, the tools that we've been given as the human, right, seeing is believing. Well, what we see is 0.0035% of reality. So seeing isn't believing. Believing is seeing. Okay, and hence, the mind gave you that, seeing is believing, which is greatly flawed. So you can't rely on that. You can't rely on what is seen. What you can rely on is what is felt. Because you experience the world. You experience life through your body, which is felt. The things that you want in your life, peace, joy, love, happiness, they're all discerned by how it makes you feel. Feel has no limitation or boundary to it, and feel is the domain of the heart, while thought is the domain of the mind. You need to know what you are to then know what you're not. And really, you will transform your life, your spiritual process, but even more importantly, your health, through facilitating what you are into the body, and therefore you can relinquish what you're not. And this is what these rings do. They're a wonderful product. Go and check them on my product store at trulyholistic.net/products/, and that's the tensor ring, the elements tensor ring set. Until next time, catch you later.